And today we have a very, very, very special guest, man. I think you guys are going to be like, how did they land this guy? But yes, we do have a very, very special guest today. But before we do get into episode, make sure you guys keep on tuning into our Instagram page. Keep on clicking that follow button. Make sure you guys are sharing the word, getting the word out. Make sure you guys are continuing to tune in with the YouTube, subscribing, liking videos. Just continue to push our message out beyond us. That's the only way we're going to get to where we're trying to go. Just it's a partnership. So without further ado, we're going to let our first guest go ahead and introduce himself.
Yeah, my name is Sergeant Kiel Nowers. I'm with the Bloomington Police Department and specifically our Community Engagement Unit. I've been a cop there for about 20 years, and our engagement unit just got created about 6 months ago.
So, 6 months ago, that's really recent. Like, what was the process behind just, everybody sitting down thinking, oh, we need a new community engagement team? Like, how did that process come about?
Yeah, it's actually, it's something that's kind of been a little bit of my passion for most of all of my career, actually. It's like, I became a cop because I wanted to help people. It's my primary reason.
Yes.
Everybody's got their own reasons why they become a cop. That was mine. And so it's like even every little bit that I have that where I interact with people, I try to make it a special moment. Just not make it my way of just, this is somebody's tragic moment in their life. Obviously, the things that have happened in the last 4 or 5 years specifically, I mean, you can go back throughout time where people have had bad relationships with law enforcement, specifically certain demographics within the United States and or Bloomington normal. But the last 4 or 5 years have been some of the most divisive I've ever seen in my entire career.
Absolutely.
And I felt like, I just feel like I needed to do more, regardless of what I was doing, maybe on just my side, but as a sergeant in the police department and where we're at, I felt like I could do a lot more. And so I started doing a lot more engagement with people, just looking out for people that have always had traditionally either a bad relationship with law enforcement or no relationship at all. Obviously, like African-American community, Hispanic community, the LGBTQ community, the Muslim community, the Jewish community, our local, we have a large Indian population here as well, and us also the victims of sexual assault. Kind of came up with those groups and started to do outreach, trying to find leaders of those groups and saying, hey, here's at least at minimum one officer, that you could say that maybe build up trust in a relationship with just that one and start it that way and start expanding. Did that on my own for years and I was having good success with it. Lots of people just starve for positive police attention and just always a chance to, because it can be very intimidating to talk to a police officer.
Oh, yeah.
And in my opinion, too, I think it's always the responsibility of those who have the power to make that first step. Because other people, it might be a little scary to go, especially somebody who's carrying a gun.
Right.
And if you've seen scary things on social media or on the media or things that you've heard about from your own family or experiences maybe you or your family have had that have been negative, it's hard for you then to break that barrier and be the first one to make that step. So I think it's a lot easier if I come to you where you feel comfortable, whether your home, your business, where I always meet whoever these leaders are or people that want to meet with me. I try to meet with them wherever they feel most comfortable. If they can have as many people as they want outnumber me, that always makes them feel a little more comfortable as well. And as you see how I'm dressed here now, most of my uniform that I wear is when you see me now, I'm wearing a polo shirt, slacks. I'll still have my gun and my badge, but I think this is a little bit easier to talk to.
It's more easygoing.
Yeah, it's not that armor that you see
you don't
me.
come off, you don't present yourself as, I'm law enforcement, even though,
you are him.
Even though you are him, you do carry a gun. It's like a more of a toned down uniform. You don't lead with, this is my badge, this is that. No, you see that, but I'm also a regular human being. I want to create a kind of a bridge.
Exactly.
And you touched on trust. I think that's kind of a big thing when it comes to the police and the community. They oftentimes they feel like they can't trust a police officer, or they're always trying to do bad and harm them. But in reality, all officers are not the same. You can't generalize police officers all to be this one stereotypical type of behavior, type of attitude, especially towards Black, brown, those type of communities, because not everyone is like that, as we're seeing with you. I believe that if we continue to just filtering our process, if we continue to give people chances, we continue to hear people out, I think that's the only way we're going to kind of bridge that gap.
I could not agree more. I mean, I feel like I wrote that down and asked you to say it for me because the key to it all is communication. And it's like legitimate, honest communication, though, not just, I have to hear you, I have to listen to you. And it has to be genuine. You can see me, we're looking each other in the eye, and hopefully you can tell that I care about these things.
Right. Yes.
I'm sure you've also talked to people, though, and it's like, okay, this cop or whoever it is, this teacher, whoever it is, they're not listening to me. They could care less what I have to say.
This is a script right now.
Exactly. This isn't just checking off a box for me. Like, ooh, I spoke to an African-American today. Let's take a quick selfie. I'll post it on social media. Done. That is not at all what I believe.
Right.
It's like, and what's great, too, is our current chief that we have here now, he's phenomenal. His name's Jamal Symington. He came from the state police, he's a lieutenant colonel there, and now he's with Bloomington hired him as an outside chief here, and he's been with us a year, actually, starting in October.
Okay.
And his passion is community engagement as well. And it was easily recognizable when I first saw him when he came in, his style. And it wasn't just the lip service, which sometimes you'll see from other departments and other places in the past. He's at these community engagement things as well. He's leading from the front. So it's like, we've heard lots of leaders, who talk about something, but then never follow through themselves. Like, it's easy to say.
Yeah.
He's at least half of the community engagement things that I have that are part of mine. He's at least half of them. And this is a guy with a very busy schedule, and he's still making the time.
Yeah,
Lead by example.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
As a chief, you definitely have a busy schedule, but I think that's important, especially on a college town type of atmosphere. You want to have that community presence. You want the students to feel safe. You want the parents that are raising kids in the community, you want them to feel safe, because things do happen in this college town. People,
And,
things happen.
and in a sense, too, it's pretty much like showing face. Like, people want to put a face behind who's really leading the community. They don't want to just be like, okay, I see you on TV, I see you having all these conversations, but yeah, I've never really seen you in the community.
Especially important when you're talking about something like policing, where everybody sees the uniform, and it's hard to put a human face to it. But if you can do that and make it personal and let them know, like, no, this is who I am, these are my values, and this is what all my officers, I expect from them. And he's let it know, like, it'll be known, and you're seeing it more. And he's talked about culture change at our department. Again, Bloomington's a really great place to work. It's one of the better police departments that you're going to find anywhere. And I can honestly say it from working there 20 years, but it's still, there's always room for improvement. And one of the things he's let everybody know, he's like, how can I get full culture change, this buy-in on community engagement, to let people know that, especially the ones that haven't always felt that trust and that connection, that we're connecting to all of them, that we work for everyone in this community, not just a few, but every single person deserves our protection and the professional service that we're supposed to provide.
And I think that's kind of like, I think that me and Austin, we're kind of doing our part. And we like to say we're acting as like a bridge right now between not just police and students, but like everything, anything ISU, anything Bloomington normal based community. We're kind of a bridge between the students and the community. And I think if people can look at us and be like, oh, they can sit down and have a conversation with a police officer who has a gun and badge on them, if they can do that, maybe we can feel more comfortable. Maybe we can let our shield down a little bit when it comes to those things. Because if they can do it, so can we. We're very cool people with them. I think that's the only way that things are going to continue to get better. We just got to continue to reach out in the right places and do things that are necessary.
And I could not agree more. And that's exactly the whole premise behind our community engagement unit, is that there's a full-time officer now, that my whole job isn't to be too busy to talk to people.
Yes.
That we don't just have a police interaction when there's a tragedy or there's enforcement happening, that we can have a human conversation.
Right.
All those times like, well, I don't want to bother that officer, I'm sure he's really busy right now. It's like, no, that's my job.
Right.
Come ask those questions you've always had.
Right.
And including the difficult ones. I mean, these last few years have been very difficult on all sides. For police officers, for everybody in the community, it's been tense. And so it's like, how do we get past that? Because police have no power if the community doesn't believe in them. All of our power is based on community trust. And if we don't have that trust, so like right now we're seeing one of the biggest problems we're having in my 20-year career, we're having an unprecedented lack of cooperation on homicides. So like we're seeing the community is like, usually we don't expect the person who did the shooting to necessarily cooperate or their best friends. But we always had like the victims or the witnesses or the family members like, hey, it killed, one of our best friends. This is wrong. What happened here was wrong. Here's some information. But just because there's been this feeling, a wave across local, even if it doesn't feel local, it translates local because people, that's how they feel. Because when you're on social media now and you get to see something, you experience other people's pain, it feels local to you. And it's just natural. We're all human. The world is getting smaller.
It is.
And so with that, we all need to recognize what happens nationally can affect us locally. And so with that, on the same side of that, what we do locally we can have such power, especially on things like this on a podcast, that can have the ability to communicate with so many people,
right?
And on a human level.
This is here for forever. This audio, the footages, they never delete. So that's something you can always go back and he from this point, from day one, he was like this. This wasn't a script. He was like this with them. He's going to be like this continuously. And I think that's important. But you had
you touched on pretty much like people at a crossroad where like they don't know if they could trust police officers. They don't know if police officers could trust them. So pretty much like, how would you expect us as African Americans, Latinos, LGBTQ, all that? How would you expect us to go about initiating it? Because sometimes I feel like we all wait for somebody to be the bigger person. We all wait. So how would we go about initiating it?
Yeah, and that all depends on where you're at. What I try to do, I can just speak for us specifically with Bloomington PD, is that reach out to me. I can be that first bridge. And because sometimes it is difficult with our line of work with law enforcement. There are officers that are very busy, and some people, we're just human. And so it's like any place of work where we have like 125, 130 officers. Some of them are better communicators than others.
Yes.
Some of them, are like they do their jobs really well, but they're kind of robotic. They're not people. And it's like, as a sergeant, I had those ones like you'd have those calls. They're like, I'm going to say this. All of my officers, I trust them to handle the call professionally, but some of them are just better than others at dealing with specific people.
Right.
Like we had one, I teach de-escalation in our department. One of the very first videos I show is a part where officers had to use force, but they used the minimum amount of force, and they handled it really well. But they still had to tase this guy, and he was a Marine Corps veteran, and he was going through some really sad. So he was feeling suicidal, and the officers had enough there where they were going to have to force him to go to the hospital. But the sergeant who's working on duty asked, like, hey, send all veterans to that call, so they'll be able to relate to him better, and he'll relate to them. And so when they got there and they explained, like, hey, this is the unit I was in, and it did help and those things, but they still had to use force because he just wasn't in the mood. His mindset was just not there. And when they tased him, immediately they start talking down, de-escalating. They're like, hey, you think I want to do this? And they're talking really effectively, like, you know how many veterans kill each other every day? It's like, we can't have this. And the guy starts crying and he apologizes. And it's a great moment because it's like officers had to use force, but they did it. Nobody would watch this video and think the officers did anything wrong. And none of them wanted to hurt this guy. So, like, to answer your question better, it's like I'm that spot here, at least for Bloomington, to be that first spot. If anybody feels like they would ever like a sit-down, a one-on-one, or however many of your group that you would like me to come and talk to where you can sit in private and have questions, you can come to the police department or I can come to you. I'll meet you wherever. I'll meet you here in ISU campus. Just because you're ISU, I don't see that differential just because we're Bloomington PD. If you need that contact, I can help you find normal officers too, ISU PD officers. They actually have their own community engagement as well with Sergeant Mike Gardner, excellent police officer, very nice guy. But you can reach out to me and I can give you my email and all those kinds of things too, contact list number. But sometimes it's just having that approach too, of just being kind of like, hey, with a smile. And I hate to tell people to smile. So that sounds terrible. But it's literally one of the things I train my officers on too, is that we don't always have to look so tough. It's like, look approachable. And so with that thing, when you're coming to an officer's right now, police are also on edge.
Yes.
Because while it's going, they're feeling cornered as well. And I'm not trying to play victim here at all, but it's just a kind of a fact where a lot of the officers do feel under attack right now. And so just knowing that as a human way, if you want to approach them with a smile and like, hey, here's some things that are going on. This is a community. I'd love to sit and talk with a police officer sometime. Do you know who I can talk to? And they should hopefully be able to give you someone. If they don't, if they act rude after that, I still would want to know about that as well, because it's not acceptable. That's one of the things with our new chief as well. He's huge on accountability.
Okay.
And we need accountability in law enforcement. As much as I'll talk great about all the police officers, but if bad policing exists, which we have all seen videos of, we have to stop that. We have to stamp that out. Whether it's training or if those officers need to be fired, then that's the way it needs to go. But we need to have people trust their policing, and we need to put out all good videos that are going out there that people can respect and admire.
Yes. So you touched a little bit earlier on kind of like what led you to be like want to get into police force, basically was community outreach. Like, was it any particular person in your life or that you had seen coming up and was like, That's something that I would like to do.
That's a great role model.
Yeah, wow. There's been so many, and it's funny because there weren't so many that it was police officers. It's probably like anybody, it was TV media that actually those models there of just the idea of like, wow, there's a lot of ability, and I want to say the word power because it's not about that, but it's the ability, kind of like the power you guys have with these radio waves. You saw the ability to influence and help people and educate people with what you're doing. The same thing with me is like, because at first I started out wanting to be a teacher, secondary education, history, politics teacher. But I like the idea of policing where you got to have that, see that immediate impact right away. Where teaching sometimes, I realized like myself, I had some great, like one of the first ones that come to my head, I'll name drop it, his name was Mr. Mentis.
Okay.
He was a amazing teacher I had at Chittix. Like I said, I'm local from here, and he was a ninth grade was it geography teacher, which sounds so boring. His first class of the day, and he turned the class though into public affairs. I mean, like public, current events. And so, like one day, I remember, I'll just give you a real quick story here, but just like how amazing he was. He came in, he was also the basketball coach, so he's just full of passion and energy, which you need at 8 o'clock in the morning,
Yes,
your first
absolutely.
class.
Yes, absolutely.
And every day he'd come in with new information. Like I'll tell you how old I am here now. He come in with a poll from the newspaper from the USA Today, and one of them was of college kids, and it was a poll about the Holocaust, and it was like George Washington University in D.C. And it was something, I'm going to butcher the numbers here, but it's something close to like 70% of the college kids polled said that the Holocaust never happened.
Whoa.
And it was like 20% said it happened, but it was overblown. And then like 10% said it happened and it was horrible. He's like, he was furious. I've never seen him this angry. He's like, how many of you have ever been taught about the Holocaust in school? And only one kid raised his hand. He was from Pennsylvania. And he's like, no student of mine is ever going to answer this way on a poll. He's like, I've already spoken to the superintendent. We're spending the next month on the Holocaust.
Oh, wow.
And we did. And it's like, he had that ability to power to change minds and educate to make sure that we weren't ignorant about our past. And so with policing now, the same thing. It's like, I have the power to touch people's lives. And so now as a sergeant, I have a significant power too to also influence the officers' lives as well and make sure that they understand the history and past. I teach de-escalation. I teach about crowd control and things like that they're going to. So I make sure I bring in the history of like protests and make sure that the officers are all aware of these things. Like one of the things with the Ferguson report that came through after obviously Ferguson, Missouri, with Michael Brown, is one of the things that came through is that make sure that the Justice Department said that no dogs or fire hoses can ever be used in a crowd especially where racial division. And a lot of officers didn't understand that, but if you don't know the history of the civil rights era, where fire hoses and dogs are used on crowds of people who are standing in line to vote, people in suits and ties and dresses, just standing in line to vote. But because they were used in such a horrible way by police officers in the past, it can never be used again like that. It's little things like that of just getting out into the community and trying to touch people and reach them in a positive, consistent way is, I think, incredibly important this day and age more than ever.
Yes, in a sense, what he's trying to say is be the change that you want to see. In a sense, that's what 100%. He's trying to do. Because I feel like everybody, like even bystanders, most of us wait for somebody else to react. But if we are all waiting for somebody to react, nobody's going to help. And it can end up being worse.
And I couldn't agree with that more. So a lot of this I've done starting off on my own and just reaching out. But then it's having that leadership of having the ability that a current chief came in. So I kind of pitched the idea of community engagement unit to him. Took a chance. It's like talking to a chief can be very intimidating as well. Speaking to your boss, he's several rungs ahead of where I am as a sergeant. He's a new chief. I didn't know him very well. And pitched the idea to him, and 2 weeks later, he created the unit and put me in charge of it. And he's given me kind of carte blanche to do it my way. Wow. And so good things can happen if you take that chance and push forward.
I'm going to say, if people can see kind of your passion in it, people can hear it in your voice, they can see it in your eyes, I think it becomes much easier for them to kind of let their guard down and let you do what you want to do.
And trust you.
I think it's kind of easier to have that support. We can see it ourselves. The more we keep going, the more episodes every week. It's like we get new followers, we get new supporters, and it's like people start to see, these guys really care about this. This is something they're really passionate about. And I think that's the from everything you just said, that's the main thing to take away is he said 2 weeks. That's a very quick turnaround.
That's incredible turnaround
for a new unit and a police force. That's a very quick turnaround. But that just goes to show that he saw something And he's like, okay, let's get it done. I see that you believe in it. I see it's something you've been working on your entire 20-year career with Bloomington. So I think that that's the biggest thing to kind of look at. As long as you have passion for something, you really care about it, sky's the limit with it.
Yes. I had a question. So before you even started out, did you imagine yourself working for the department for 20 years?
Yes, and that's something that's probably very weird for this current generation, because one of the things we're seeing is, everybody moves and changes quite a bit more.
A lot.
And so with our line of work, with policing, it really is beneficial to stay somewhere a long period of time. And I know it's so hard probably for people from your generation to be thinking about things like pensions.
Oh, yeah.
And because most jobs now don't offer them. You don't have as many union jobs as it used to be, where our policing here is union. And so there's so many more benefits that come with that. And I'll put on my recruitment hat here for a minute. And it's like Bloomington PD pays really well, especially compared to other like departments around here. Like we start out at $72,000 a year. In 3 years, you're at $95,000. When we sign our next contract, I'm going to be a maxed out sergeant. I'll be making about $130,000. I never dreamed, like you said that question, would I think I'd be here 20 years? Well, I never even thought I'd be making $100,000 as a cop. When I first started, the money wasn't even a real consideration for me. I just wanted to do the job and have fun and action and all that kind of stuff. Now that I'm older and I've got kids and I'm closer to a pension, the idea of being able to make $100,000 a year retired is incredible, and not have to. I also have a 457 setup that I've been putting into myself too, because we don't get Social Security because we put into a pension program. But the idea of like staying somewhere for this long is harder for like a lot of the younger generation. I think because you guys usually move jobs almost every 5 years, it seems.
Right.
And so, but it really is beneficial if you can find a place that you think you will want a long-term job. And we think that this job, it's so fulfilling that if you do it the right way. Policing is tough right now. A lot of places lost people, especially these last 4 or 5 years, because of attacks on police and just the volatility involved in it. It's tough to also have pride, and you want to have pride in your job. And so that's one of the things that, like, as not just head of recruitment, but also head of this community engagement, I'm trying to rebuild pride for the officers from within too. We want them all to have a job that they feel proud of, that our community respects us and loves us and wants us. Just backtracking here, but one of the questions I always have whenever I meet somebody new from one of those groups I was saying that usually has had a bad relationship with law enforcement, I always ask them, like, would you call the police if you had questions, problems, concerns, or a serious problem? And almost all of them have said no. And from those groups. Yeah, and that has really shocked me. And it definitely shocks the other people in my department because they don't think that those other groups feel that way. But they do. And they're like, unless it was life-threatening, you wouldn't call the police. And it's like, and that breaks my heart. And that's like one of the number one reasons I do this job, meaning the community engagement side, because as a white heterosexual male, I've grown up every day in my life thinking that the police were somebody I would call if I had a problem. Right. I've never questioned that. And to know that there's all these other groups that are out there that do not feel that way is just heartbreaking, because everyone should look at their local police and be like, no, if I have a problem, if I was a little kid and I was lost, I should go to a police officer. If someone broke into my car, I should call a cop. If someone punched me or is harassing me or hurting me or I have domestic violence, I should call the police. You should never look at the police as somebody who's going to make something worse or somebody to be afraid of. That's my goal, is to make sure that all those people get the treatment and the service that they deserve.
I was going to say that's kind of pretty eye-opening. I'm going to touch on the salary side that you said, the $72,000. That's eye-opening, and that's put a little bit of context. Like where I'm from is like West Suburbs, one of the towns where I was from. I think the starting was like they had just bumped it up to it started like 62,000, I want to say.
Yeah, the cost of living is much lower down here.
Yeah, and I would say that's an extra 10,000 you get just to start. And we're not in any way, shape, or form, we're not leading with money, but we're saying this is a career that you'll be able to sustain and be able to provide for your family, but also there's room for growth. Like you said, by the time you're done or whatever, you'll be at least 130,000. That's room for growth. That's another 60,000 right there, and you're not even dealing with every day-to-day people. You're not riding around in a police car every day.
Not anymore, no.
Right, you're not doing that anymore. Your wages, your salary has went up. So I think that's something to kind of put in perspective. Like, it's room for growth in police force as well. You don't stay an officer all the time. You don't have to. You can, but you don't have to stay an officer all the time. and there's room for growth in terms of pay and in terms of community outreach and things like that. So I think that's something big to kind of look at, is the room for growth.
Absolutely. And one of the other things too, and this is some with our new chief as well, his number one focus right now on our department, besides community engagement, is making sure our department reflects the community that we live in. And so he is trying like crazy to ramp up the amount of diversity we have within our department with people of color and definitely with women. He signed a pledge called 30 by 30, where he's trying to make 30% of our department women by 2030. And so if there's women out there, people of color, that please apply. We are hiring like crazy, and believe me, you will be noticed. We're trying to do everything we can to make this job more appealing so that we are getting all those different perspectives. When we're sending officers out there, it only helps us if we look and we reflect and we have the values and the backgrounds of the community that we're actually serving.
Yes. And also you touched on pretty much like our generation not necessarily capable, but we are not capable of long-term thinking. And I'm saying that as in like you touched on it, like most of us are willing to work a job for like 2 to 5 years and then be like, I'm gonna move on. Like the older generation is like, okay, 2 to 5 years, that's okay. But if I can work a job that I enjoy and love for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that's a blessing. But most of us can't see past the first 2 to 5 years.
And I think that's something like with me and you, like we see past, like, yeah, we can obviously see the next 2 to 5, but we kind of look past that a lot of times with the podcast, with our career, investing, things like that. We kind of try to look past the 2 to 5 because we know 2 to 5, that's going to come just like that. We've already been in school for 2.5 years, and that's went by like a flash. So I think if people can like not necessarily plan for the future because things come up, you obviously can't have everything set in stone step by step for the next 10 years. But I think if people can kind of have like an outlook of what they want to do, I think it'll be easier to kind of stay the course for things.
Definitely, and you guys are different too because like you told me, you already have a background and your specialty is in finance, so you're already geared to think longer term than most people.
Right.
But I can't tell you how important that is, especially to start putting that money away at the very beginning. And the idea of we're policing with that pension, it's just so incredible to think that you're going to have a full on salary when you retire. And it, like I can do it at 50. But the other tier that's coming in now, it's 55, which is still crazy young. So I know I'm much older than you, and 55 sounds probably like senior citizens to you guys. I just turned 44, so I'm 6 years away from retirement, and I feel fantastic. I keep in good shape, so it's like if you take care of yourself, and 50 can be really young. And now I'm going to have the rest of my life to either get another job or my wife's just kind of really gotten her career going. It was like, I get to watch my girl. I get to be a dad, a full-time dad, and take care of my girls and let her do her job and like enjoy that side of it and really flourish where I have the ability and the freedom. And that's what that money's always about. Money shouldn't just be about buying items and, material objects. Money is about freedom. It's about giving you the ability and the carefreeness to take care of the things that you really want to do, whether it's travel, your kids' education, and healthcare, things like that. That's another thing that BPD's got that's incredible is our healthcare is unreal. We've got a Cadillac of Cadillac plans in our police department. It's actually the best health insurance you're going to find in Bloomington Normal, better than any professor's got at ISU, even doctors have in town. Like, for example, my wife's had 2 C-sections. I hope she's not mind me giving away too much information here. 2 C-sections, we pay $10 copay. That's it. Usually most any other plans you're going to find, you're still going to be paying them like $1,000 or a couple $1,000s out of pocket. Our insurance is absolutely incredible. It's a little more expensive, but you get absolutely, our union fought for it, and it's just incredible. So that's one of those things that as your age too, probably still under your parents' plans for the most part. All college kids are till you're 25. Yeah. But insurance is incredibly important once you start getting out there and finding a job that's got that. And that's one of those things too, that bouncing job to job every 2 to 5 years can be scary.
It's hard to kind of reap those benefits that come with it because you're moving around so much, right?
You touched on family. How important is family really to you?
I mean, it's everything. It's why we do everything that we do. It's you have this job, and it's like you want to, and that's one of the things I try to teach the officers too in my de-escalation class is like, videos are everywhere now. If it was with law enforcement, I mean, whether it's our own body-worn cameras that we all wear or it's the cameras that everyone else's videos are going to be taken, it's like, make sure you're taking pictures. It's like, it's hard to put yourself in those perspective when you're at the job because you're in that zone. If you guys ever played sports, it's like, you know what it's like when you're on the
tunnel
field.
vision.
Yeah, exactly. Like I remember when I played football in high school, it was like, I never once almost noticed the crowds. It's like I noticed my teammates and all the players on the sidelines, but my view never went outside the sidelines and the field.
Right.
And same thing when you're at policing. A lot of times you get locked in, and you need to be because of the security and a lot of safety issues are there. But I want officers always thinking when those videos are getting made, make videos that your family's going to be proud of. That, you know, if like your grandma watched this video later on, she's going to be like, that's my grandson. That's my granddaughter. She did that.
And nothing really beat like grandma being proud of you.
No, nothing does. But also nothing also beats grandma giving you
being
that
disappointed.
Look of disappointment. Nothing. Yeah, it's the word. She didn't have to say a word.
That is
and it's
true.
like, I did wrong.
Yes.
And it's like, so I want them thinking like, make videos that like, because I'd catch myself when the cameras first started coming out when I was younger, and I'd watch my video like on a traffic stop or something. I'm like, ooh, you know, I was a little sarcastic or snarky there. And it's like, I was causing a problem. You know, I was wrong. I shouldn't talk like that. So it can help us correct. So it's like, make those videos that you're going to be proud of, your department's going to be proud of, that your family's going to be proud of.
I think that's kind of a big thing you just touched on. Like you watch videos, you're like, I was a little bit aggressive there. I was a little bit snazzy there. And I think that's something, like you said, accountability.
Holding
I think
yourself
that's
accountable.
Something that a lot of police officers do lack is like they think that, oh, I've been this way since day one. I'm going to continue to be this way. When it's not really working in reality. They don't have the ability to kind of take accountability, be like, maybe I did kind of overstep a little bit there. They were being this type of way, but as the police officer in the situation, my position is to diffuse the situation, right? So maybe I could have been a little more calm here, a little bit more patient. I think that's something that a lot of police officers can't do. So that's very great that you were able to do that.
And it's one of those things, too, that as community members, don't hesitate to come tell us if one of our officers has done something wrong. And let the supervisors know. And you're thinking, oh, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. Well, now we do have these videos. I mean, because before it was always tough. It was he said, she said kind of thing. But now with videos, the supervisors, and like I said, I'm a sergeant. I was a patrol sergeant before I did this. So I'd get all the times where people call and complain. And then I go and try and verify what happened by watching the videos. And sometimes people's perspectives were just wrong. Like, oh, I see why you're saying he's being short here, but it was just because there was a man with a gun here. He had to be short with you. And it was like, we had to take care of this. And that's why, yeah, he might have been a little rude, but the more important thing was he was trying to get people to safe and giving orders. On some of them, like, ooh, yeah, no, the officer was very rude here. I don't know, he or she was having a bad day that day or something, but we absolutely need to correct that. It's going to go in their file. We'll send them to training, whatever it needs to be done. But if we don't stop that and correct that, then it, like you said, it just keeps going on and on.
Cycle. It's a cycle
Absolutely.
that keeps
We
repeating
need to
itself.
know about it. So please let us know if you feel like something's doing something wrong, and you should get feedback. We have an Office of Professional Standards that looks into all these videos. It's all documented.
You had touched on family a little bit. You have a wife. You have daughters or sons.
Yep, 2 little girls.
2 little girls. Okay. I'm not sure if your wife was around during the time where you were like kind of transitioning into the police force, but like what did kind of the people around you think about you kind of getting into this field? Were they kind of a little bit scared? Were they all for it? What was it like?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because anybody that's thinking about going this field, that's something you'll have to deal with, especially this day and age. For me, I mean, most everybody was very happy for me. Some of them, yeah, very scared, because it is a dangerous profession. And so and then you've got some friends that, you know, just maybe didn't like the police. And I definitely had those too. And they're like, well, at least I got one cop I kind of like now. And that helps. That's one of the things too. It's like I always tell, especially like you're both people of color. And it's like, this is a chance, like when you get into this line of work, you can change it from the inside. And then it's all of a sudden now it's like, you get to spread that word about what policing is like within your communities as well. And it's like, you get to come here and see from your side and then change it. Because no matter who you are, what background is, when you come into a place of work, some of it will change you. There's a very strong culture that always comes in, especially in law enforcement. But you also get to leave your mark as well. And if you see things that you don't like or don't like, and that's one thing that's kind of cool about policing, is no matter what, you'll go through the FTO, the police academy, and all that kind of stuff. But once you're on your own, you have a lot of leeway to do things your way. And it's like you have to follow guidelines and rules and laws, of course, but there's so much variety in way. Like if you're on a domestic call, how much care are you giving to this person who just got beat up? You know, like, are you being extra sympathetic with them, looking them in the eye and really being that kind of quasi-social worker at the same time and making sure that they feel listened to and giving them all the opportunities? Or are you just taking a report and you're leaving? And it's like, there's a lot of chances for you to still be your very individualistic self and leave your stamp on the job in every single call. If you're polite and smiling and helping people and trying to hand out stickers to all the little kids you see, and we got little badge stickers that we give out to them, and it's like you just leave that little positive mark on everything that you try to do and just being respectful and polite.
And the positive mark goes a long way, because let's say we in a situation, you help me see what I did wrong, I help you see what you do wrong, and then pretty much I go about my day. Now the image of you, the police officer, being good to me, I get to share with my friends, and it could change their whole perspective. Whoa, you mean to tell me there was a good police officer? Yes. And then that could change a whole outlook on how we interact with police. Maybe because I feel like a lot of people, they just keep on hearing bad stories, so they allow those stories to be theirs, and that's how that ends it. Pretty much, they don't see anything past anything good.
That's absolutely true, and that's the whole point of kind of what the community engagement unit's supposed to be, is like to help counter that and give the opportunity and the time to tell those positive stories and create a positive relationship. Because most of what we do is enforcement, and so we're taking people's rights away, their freedom away, and we're dealing also on the other side is tragedies, your car crashes, you've been a victim of burglary, a sexual assault, domestic violence, and it's like those are all or a death. We show up at all death scenes, and so it's like I try to remind officers of this too. You have to realize as a cop, we're dealing with people constantly on their worst days. And so it's like, that is just going to, psychologically, it's going to make them think of negative things about the uniform. And so it's like, but if you can take those opportunities to be very professional, be polite, and on those times where you can do something to really help people, go out of your way and do that extra special, so that they'll remember, not just the uniform, but they'll remember the face, the name. Leave your business card with them. Let them know if there's anything else you can do to help them, like you're there. So they feel like it's not just a machine, that they're actually a human being that they're dealing with.
That's kind of big. One of the things I wanted to ask was like, what's kind of like a typical day for you? When do you start from when you put the gun on your waist? What does your day typically look like after that?
Well, it's different now. I'm assuming you're asking probably when I was on patrol.
Yeah, when you was on patrol.
Yeah. And that's what's kind of crazy is that cops will always joke about the typical day or the typical traffic stop, because there are none. And it's so weird. It's one of the things that is the most appealing for, I'm going to put on my recruiting hat for a minute too. If you're the kind of person that loves variety in your life and you want something that's not predictable, become a cop. Because it's one of those things that definitely appealed to me. I did not want to be, and I'm not trying to knock them because I love State Farm, their local great business, but I could never work there. It just wasn't for me. It's like I actually applied for a job there at one point. I was like, I just need to get a good job, good money. State Farm's, they're like
the biggest you could go.
And I went in there and I'm like, okay, khakis and a polo shirt every day in a cubicle. It's like, I cannot do this. It's like, it wasn't for me. And I can't be a cog in a machine. It's like, I needed something where I can have it. I'm very much an extrovert, and I'm a people person. And so when you're a cop, you never know what's going to happen. So you're putting on that uniform, you go out and you patrol. First step, we'll have briefing in the morning or whatever, the beginning of your shift, and we hear about all the things that happen in the last couple shifts. So that we're always in tune with what's going on in the city. Then you go out in your squad car and you're patrolling. You're either waiting for calls or you're kind of looking for stuff at the same time too. So if you're really one of the more assertive cops out there, you're like trying to look for stuff. You're looking for people who might have drugs, guns, DUIs, things like that. And you're making traffic stops, and so if you get pulled over, it's like it might be somebody that's looking for some of those things, or it's something you just did traffic. We're trying to keep people safe, so somebody's rolling through a stop sign, we might pull them over. Like in Bloomington, I'll tell you, this is one of the things too. That is one of the best things that ever happened, like how laws can change and affect the way that we do business. One of the best laws that ever got created in Illinois is they got rid of the Illinois quota law, where there used to be quotas for cops that we could have at our department.
Yes.
And we used to have, like at Bloomington, it was like 10 tickets a month that we had to write, which isn't that bad.
Each officer?
Yeah, that was a quota.
Normal, though. Sorry, normal, but theirs was 30.
Wow, that's a ticket a day.
That's a lot. It's more than a ticket a day. Because think about, because you're only working 5 days a week. So that's a lot. And again, we grew up, I'm from this town, and Normal was always ticket heavy. For my way, we were always afraid of driving more in Normal than in Bloomington. But once they got rid of that law, it's no longer possible. We can have quotas on traffic stops, but not tickets. So what the governments have kind of tried to say is that police departments should not be money-generating entities. We're there to enforce safety and things like that, not to try and bring in cash. Because that's one of the things that came also in, speaking again of Ferguson. from the Justice Department's study is that they found that they were, I think it was something like 90% of their driving population had gotten a ticket in the last year. It was something crazy. And they found
insane.
They found all these emails between the chief and the mayor where they were like trying to raise funds, like, oh, we'll just do another ticket, another traffic enforcement thing, and we'll raise money for this. And it was like, this is not what police are supposed to be for. And it's why people hate cops a lot of times. Right. And it's like, especially tickets now, what are they, like $120, $150 a ticket?
Yeah, not cheap.
I make, like I already told you my salary, I make good money, but that would leave a huge dent in my budget. Imagine it a college kid.
I was gonna say I have a personal situation. Me and a couple of buddies, we were walking to another buddy's apartment, The Edge, right, very close on campus. We're walking this late at night, so we're walking like in the street a little bit, but that's because it's a little bit construction going on, and this was also peak Jelani Day time. So we're walking in the street, and it's a Bloomington police officer just sitting there on the side or whatever. I guess kind of just making sure. Speeding, drunk driving, and things like that. So he gets out his car. He comes up to us like, "Hey, why are you guys walking the street? This and that." Very aggressively. I'm like, you just feel kind of. I always walk in the street at nighttime. I just feel safer because it's street lights are there. People can see you, and then it was also construction going on right there. So it was like just a little bit safer for us. Then also street lights, and then he was like, "I seen you guys. You did move out of the way when the car was coming, but we can't. You just can't have you guys walking the street." We was very respectful and things like that, but he proceeded to go and write each of us $160 ticket for walking in the street. Eventually, I had to go to court 3 times to get it dismissed, but he wrote a $160 ticket for us for walking in the street, no warning. He called another cop in, backup. Immediately, and then wrote all 4 of us $160 tickets. And that's like one of the, I wasn't like, we were all respectful. We didn't escalate or nothing like that. We took the tickets, okay, whatever, we'll go to the court. But that was like one of the things that opened my eyes. I was like, $160 for walk? I'm not even in the car right now. And it was classified as a moving violation. It would have been classified as a moving violation because it was like a pedestrian ticket.
In the roadway. Pedestrian in the roadway.
Yeah. And I was like, it baffled me, but I was like, man, that's crazy. You didn't give us like any type of warning. Just touching on like the $160, like that could be a lot for a college student, especially you got bills, you trying to eat, you're not really working as much because you got school and things like that. Like that could really put a dent on somebody, for something like that. And I'm like, I just didn't understand it.
No, and again, from what you described to me there, and knowing who you are here, just in the short little bit that we met, I have no reason to disbelieve anything that you're saying. That's troubling, and it's not something I would recommend or do. And I don't think you see that. How long ago was this?
This was last year, like the first week of school. So August, like the end of August type.
No, usually anytime that we almost never see the pedestrian in the roadway citation written. I was thinking that as a sergeant, and I worked midnights, and those times when you're talking.
It was about 11 o'clock, something like that, 11, 12 o'clock.
And it's usually because we like, the only time we'd ever see kind of reserved in the past is if we have like other criminal activity going on with that person and the same stuff, and they're really, and it's just one of those other extra tools. Mm-hmm. But not like that. Right. And this isn't going into that, but it is interesting to me just to hear the different perspectives of the why you were doing it. Because I know I've gotten out on many of people, and usually not like out, like most of the time not even got on my car, but slow down and tell them like, hey, would you mind just walking up on the sidewalk for me? Because we get lots of people that walk in the streets. And the reason from us on our perspective is it is much safer for you on the sidewalk. I just want to make that very clear. And I know what you're saying is like you're thinking at night where you want to stay where at least it's a little more well lit. Mm-hmm. And if there's construction, I mean, that's obviously clearly you have a justified reason for not being there. But so many drunk drivers, and especially at night where it's just harder to see people anyway, and they're not expecting people to be in the roadway, you are much safer on a sidewalk. Mm-hmm. Your chances of getting robbed are incredibly low in Bloomington normal. Your chances of being hit by a car, much higher at midnight at night, where either a drunk driver or just somebody driving at night. Mm-hmm. And most people aren't wearing real bright clothing either. Right. So please stay on the sidewalks. But Yeah, I don't like the idea of tickets being written.
And that was the
I
thing.
would never, as a sergeant, recommend them. And I would actually question my officers if I spoke to them. I saw that ticket. Usually, when those come across, like because they're very rare.
Right.
So, like, did something extra happen here? What's going on with this? Why'd you write 2 or 3 guys here walking in the roadway?
4 tickets. He wrote $460 tickets, and I understand. I understand where you're coming from. Like the sidewalk is safer. If he just would explain that to us,
and that's what it should be. It's a verbal warning. Yeah,
we'll walk on the sidewalk, no problem. But when you go we were literally standing out there for probably 40 minutes, and once it got to the 10-minute mark, I'm like, oh, he writing tickets.
No, and that leaves just a terrible taste in your mouth. The
It
policing
did,
in
yeah.
general. Yeah, and I don't blame you, and that's not the image we want to put forward whatsoever.
All right, but it just goes to show like another thing. Because the officer that he brought on scene with him, he didn't say a word to us. He was kind of like
The backup officer.
yeah, he didn't say anything. He was kind of, I guess we can kind of get that feel from him. He was kind of like, I don't agree with it, but hey, I gotta be.
I don't want to step on his toes.
Yeah, I gotta be with my fellow officer here, but I don't agree with it. But he was giving that vibe.
Yeah,
you know?
I've been in those spots many a times with officers, and it's their call, it's their thing, and it's like, yeah, I'm not going to step on you. But usually, sometimes too, it's like, and this is cases you're a little bit different here. But I will say that one of the things, the laws that has also changed recently, is the duty to intervene that has came across especially since George Floyd. It's now making it into law, at least in Illinois, or codifying that officers have a responsibility to step in if an officer is doing something illegal or unethical. And I use it in my de-escalation class, and I have since before that law was ever created. Is like letting officers know. It's like almost every officer I've ever worked with has been incredibly brave. And it's like if I've heard gunshots go on, boom, we run towards the gunshots. The house is on fire. We want the firemen there too, but we'll still run there if we're closer. Mm-hmm. We'll run towards danger. But I'm like, I see so many cops, though, afraid to step in front of another cop if they're making a fool out of themselves or doing something improper, or like losing their temper and things like that. And it's like, why won't you save a cop's career? Or why won't you step in to save their reputation and to save that citizen? It's like, that's also bravery, and that's your job as well.
That's a great perspective.
I was gonna say it's not even just the officer. It's like this guy's representing your company. He's representing your community, your force. So it's like, yeah, I don't want nothing to happen in your career, but I don't want to have to go and do a press conference about this.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't want to have to go answer questions to the news about this. So let's just save everybody here the trouble. Let's kind of calm down, kind of de-escalate the situation.
Absolutely.
Let's see how we can go about it positive.
Absolutely, because that's one of the things I always try to say too after the George Floyd thing is that no one should hate a bad cop more than a good cop. And it's like I'd like to see more cops being outspoken when those things happen, because it's like, you are ruining our reputation. It's like, no blue wall of silence. I want, the blue line was supposed to generate pride. It was supposed to be the line standing between good and evil, like breaking the law and the law. And it became something else over the last few years, or started to by some people being corrupted into this other thing. And it's like, it shouldn't be. The blue line is supposed to be something the cops are proud of, that we stand on this side and we're willing to fight for things to protect people. And it's like when officers go out there and do something awful, like which George Floyd video was one of the sickest things I've ever seen in my entire life. And especially I think of the moment where the cop, I can't remember his name now, but put it out of my mind, I don't even want to give him credit. But
I can't even remember.
But it's got his knee on his neck, and then at one point he actually puts his hands in his pockets and looks at because there's that one citizen, the guy that's yelling at him and telling him, you're killing him, like you're on his throat, he's not breathing, and he just puts his hands in his pockets. I'm like, and if you're a cop, every cop knows, because of those duty belts, we can almost impossible to put your hands in your front pockets. And so it's basically, what is that?
The sign of disrespect.
Yes, it's that I don't care. And it was like, that was one of the worst things to me, like just letting you know his thought process. And it was like, somebody like that should never be a cop. Bullies do not belong in uniform.
I think that's one of the biggest things is like you said, bullies don't belong in uniform. A lot of people, going back to like the reason that you became a cop, a lot of people become a cop because they were bullied. So they think they can turn around and, now I'm going to be the bully. Now I'm going to be the one in power. Now I'm going to want to abuse the power. And I think that's something that we got to get away from. But I mean, it's just a filtering out process.
Is the victim mindset one in power? That's what it is.
Yeah. I agree. And that's one of those things we definitely need to make sure that we weed out and we don't allow to filter back in. Because, nobody who thinks like that should have power. But it's one of the problems with a job like this is that it draws that kind of people who want to abuse power. They're going to go to where the power is.
Yep.
Whether it's politics, policing, whatever it may be. If there's power there, it will draw sometimes the wrong kind of people. It's up to all of us to make sure that, that we don't let those people in, or if they get in, they don't stay there.
Yes. So it's been a tremendous honor to have you on here. It's been phenomenal. It's been great.
One of the best episodes. A lot of
to this day. To this day.
Information.
So before we let you go, do you mind sharing your Gmail, your phone number for people to reach out to you on and everything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say too, if you want to join the police department, you can go to cityblm.org/joinbpd. And then my name is Sergeant Kiel Nowers. That's KIELNOWERS. And my email is K, like my first name is Kyle. So K Nowers, my last name, N like normal, OWERS, at cityblm.org. And my desk phone number is 309-434-2583. And you can get a hold of me anytime, and I'll definitely, if you want to sit down, meet, talk, whatever, whoever you are, whatever group you're with, whatever demographic, I'd be happy to meet with you.
Yes, and that'll be a best resource if you need to reach out. He's one of the greatest guys we've had on here so far.
Absolutely. All of those links and contacts will be in the episode description, so you'll be able to click the links. You'll be able to enter all that information in, and you'll be able to get in contact with him anytime you feel that the need is there.
Thank you again, and Free Sauce, we out.
Thank you, guys. Freesaucepodcast, we are out.
And now you're facing all your fears like you are more than one. In between your fingers, the smoke comes out your mouth. No fingers on the triggers, just letting it all out. And now it's all just leaving your body, the aching and pains and the twisting of faces. Just living on a good vibe, sipping on a good time, laughing with the boys and thinking about flying higher, flying higher. And you're touching on the clouds with your head held high, no question on why you just like to be flying higher. In between your fingers, the smoke comes out your mouth. No fingers on the triggers, just letting it all out. And now it's all just leaving your body, the aching and pains and the twisting of faces. Just living on a good vibe, sipping on a good time, laughing with the boys and thinking about flying higher, flying higher. And you're touching on the clouds with your heads held high, no question on why you just like to be flying higher. Just living on a good vibe, sipping on a good time, laughing with the boys and thinking about flying higher. And you're touching on the clouds with your heads held high, no question on why you just like to be flying higher. And now you're flying higher in the sky than you were once. And now you're facing all your fears like you are more than one. Like you are more than one. You used to feel so devastated, and then you became